Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about the computer and phone making company called Apple, who just announced its newest iPhone a few weeks back. And needless to say, it don't impress me much. Apple's been milking their past inventions and re-releasing them with incremental improvements and higher price points for a good long while now. Gone are the days when Steve Jobs was at the helm over there. During the Jobs era, Apple was still innovating, and they were coming up with world-changing products too, like the iPod, iPhone, iPad, and much more. Nowadays, though, all their leadership has to offer is higher prices on updated legacy products. And also, they've been creating new, progressive, politically correct friendly emojis. Not kidding. As you can see by this article here, back in July, Apple was promoting new emojis, which mostly involved pandering to social justice warriors by making logos for minorities and disabled people. The article reads, "To celebrate World Emoji Day, Apple is previewing a selection of new emoji coming this fall, revealing the newest designs that bring even more diversity to the keyboard, alongside fun and exciting additions to popular categories of food, animals, activities, and smiley faces. In a major update to the holding hands emoji, typically used to represent couples and relationships, users will now be able to select any combination of skin tone in addition to gender to personalize the people holding hands, opening up more than 75 possible combinations. Diversifying emojis? How current year of Apple. And just look at this picture of all the possible couple combinations. How multicultural and woke of them. Shouldn't be too surprise coming from a company based in Silicon Valley, California, though. And this is only the beginning of their bullshit this year, too. As I mentioned in the beginning, let's finally get to the main topic for today's video. The iPhone 11 was just revealed in September, and it's come out in the past few weeks. And while it does have some cool features on it, it's also way too overpriced. And it's not really a big, interesting innovation, all things considered. First, just look at this base iPhone 11 here. And to me, it just looks like the last iPhone, but with an extra camera on it, for no reason. Now, I know these two cameras have different uses, but it just seems like a lazy and desperate addition to me. And this gets even worse when you look at the iPhone 11 Pro version. There, they've added another camera. And quite frankly, this thing is starting to look ridiculous. What's next? 4 cameras next year and 5 in 2021? Eventually, these phones are going to just be screens with a couple dozen cameras on the back of them. Like 20 circles on the back and nowhere to put your hand. One camera for each lens you want to use or something. And most of these lenses and cameras you'll never end up needing. And at what point do these iPhone buyers just go out and buy themselves a real camera anyway? Makes much more sense if you really are in this for the photography of it. And once you see the prices on these new phones, you'll see you could easily buy a separate camera and phone instead of opting for this weird iPhone 11. And those separate products will probably be better than this iPhone is combined. Sure, it's more convenient and portable and you could put it in your pocket, but damn, I'm not into this, especially not at this price. No way, I'm definitely not a fan. I mean, just look at these prices here. It's a whopping $1,000 for the 11 Pro and $1,100 for the Pro Max. And these are just the base prices too, with the smallest amount of storage, which is a despicable, pathetic 64 gigabytes. That might seem like a good amount of storage for smartphones, but you gotta remember here, this phone has 3 HD cameras on it, and it also shoots video in 4K. So with all those features, that 64 gigabytes is going to go real fast with all these kinds of big file media going onto it. So it would definitely make more sense if you're getting this phone, and if you're even going to try and go with this phone to begin with, you're going to need to upgrade that storage. And well, if you upgrade this thing all the way, it's going to cost you a staggering $1,500. And that's not including taxes, cases, screen protectors, and extra batteries and cables and whatnot. Let's not forget, iPhones only have the lightning cable plug on the bottom now, so your old headphones and mini peripherals won't work without adapters. Granted, most of these phones come with a headphone adapter now, but these small, flimsy dongles eventually get broken or lost after a short while. And that's only the beginning of the costs of this new iPhone. There's also, of course, the monthly bill you'll have to pay to your phone company, which can range from $50 to $100 a month, depending. And then there's also the heavily encouraged iCloud upload system, which Apple always pushes on you in its menus, trying to encourage users to back up their phone and photos on the internet in the cloud. And needless to say, this kind of shit just keeps adding up. First, you got a phone that costs more than most people's mortgage payments, and then you get hundreds of dollars of bills each month, which will never end. And frankly, at this kind of price point, I also think that 64 gigabyte of storage is rather disrespectful for the base model. Clearly, they're trying to milk money out of people with this bait and switch tactic too. And they also do this to allow them to advertise this phone at a lower price, which most people who know what they're doing would realize, shit, why would you even buy a phone with 3 HD cameras that shoots in 4K if you're not going to have enough storage to record onto it? Next, let's talk about the iPhone 11's competition, so you can really see how much of a ripoff this thing actually is. The Samsung Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus is what most people would compare to the iPhone 11 Pro because both phones have 3 cameras and a very similar viewing screen. And while the price you see here does make it look like this Samsung is the same price as the iPhone, but actually you get a lot more for your money when you're going with this Galaxy. First of all, this base $1,100 price not only includes this nifty pen, which you can use on the touch screen and you can also use as a controller to take selfies, and of course the iPhone would never include a pen like this, but also that's not all. This base model of the Samsung Galaxy also has 200 more gigabytes of storage. That means this model actually compares more to the upgraded iPhone 11, which cost $1,249 compared to this Samsung's $1,100. So basically, the Samsung one is cheaper, it has more RAM and more internal storage, not to mention the design of the phone just looks better. I mean, I like how these 3 cameras are in line on the back of the Samsung. It doesn't even look like there's 3 cameras there, but if you look back at this iPhone 11, the way it has 3 cameras and all these dots everywhere, it looks like it's a total mess. And also, there's 2 more features that the iPhone 11 lacks that make this Samsung Note 10 Plus much more superior if you ask me. In addition to being lighter and having a bigger screen and more RAM and storage than the iPhone, the Samsung Galaxy also has the option to add more storage with a micro SD card. That means you can add or swap out memory cards, which can give you up to 1 terabyte of extra storage. That's awesome. And it's also useful in professional situations, since you can have multiple memory cards you can swap out, which becomes handy if you're filming for extensive periods of time. Although I think it's kind of funny to think of using a phone in a professional filming situation, but I think you get the point. And it's funny how the iPhone 11 has a Pro in its title, but the Samsung is the one that's actually more professional here. Perhaps the Pro in the iPhone title actually stands for profit nowadays, if you know what I mean. Regardless, this option to add and swap memory cards on the Samsung is certainly a big advantage. Finally, there's the operating system differences that are worth noting. I know a lot of people prefer iPhones and their slick, standardized operating system called iOS, which looks and flows nicely and is rather intuitive, but I think the Samsung operating system called Android Pie, well, it's certainly worth taking a look at. In fact, Android phones have caught up to iPhones so much, many would say their operating systems have moved past them, especially in terms of customizability and features and whatnot. Apple has always been very restrictive and strict with their operating systems, making them very hard to modify and tinker with. Android, on the other hand, is much more open source with their things, and they allow for many more customizations like button mapping and much more. Now, at this point, the systems are pretty similar too, and both offer a lot of the same, but if you're comparing them head to head, and we are, well, the Android one is certainly looking more enticing, which, when combined with all these other benefits to it, I would say I'm going with the Samsung Galaxy here. And don't get me wrong here either, guys. I understand the appeal to the iPhone and Apple products. I'm not going to lie and deny it here completely because if you've watched my videos over the years, you probably already know I own a number of Apple products myself, and so do my friends and family. Me, myself personally, I still use my 2011 Apple MacBook Pro laptop, and I even got a new iPhone 7 about a year ago. Now, that may sound a bit hypocritical after all this negative Apple stuff we've gone over, but let me explain first. First of all, my MacBook is over 8 years old now, but it still works great and I wouldn't want to update it until it actually breaks down, God forbid. And if I did update at this point, I probably wouldn't be going with another Apple laptop anymore, because not only have other laptop makers already caught up with and in some cases surpassed Apple's products, but also the new MacBook Pros have a lot of the same issues the iPhones do. They're overpriced, dumbed down, and you need more dongles than a computer store has to operate them. Not to mention, they have steered away from what actually made Apple big and desirable to people in the first place, being of professional quality, meaning you can use them to make professional videos and photo editing like the stuff I do for the show. Now, sure, you can still edit videos with MacBooks in their new generations, but much like with the iPhone, the Pro part of their title hardly stands for professional anymore. As for my iPhone 7 upgrade last year, that was still justifiable then, since I was buying an older, lower priced model for that time. I paid about $500 for it about a year ago, and it's already been worth it if you ask me. And God knows I would have never dropped that over $1,000 for the top of the line model, which was the iPhone X at the time. And honestly, in my opinion, anything more than $500 is too much for a smartphone, unless you're using it for a job in some sort of serious vlogging, filming way. Or maybe if you're filthy, stinking rich and don't care, maybe you'd go for this expensive phone then. But even if I was rich, and I am, I'm still not going to waste my money on something like that when I know I could get a better deal out there, especially nowadays when there's so many other cheaper and better options for smartphones on the market. Speaking of the later iPhone 10 or X model, well, if you have that one, there's pretty much no reason to upgrade to this new 11 that's being promoted now. All the changes and updates between these generations have become so minor, it's definitely not worth paying extra every year for something you don't need. Some say every 2 or 3 years it's worth an upgrade, but I'm more likely to go with 4 or 5 if I can. Or you upgrade when your phone actually breaks or slows down or gets lost or something. Now, you might call me cheap or frugal or a hater for saying all that, but I just can't stand this yearly upgrade shit and this idea of wasting your money on smartphones game plan, which appears to be Apple's MO for a good long while now. Instead of innovating and coming up with something new or making significant upgrades to older products, Apple instead has been going with this yearly incremental overpriced upgrading system that, quite frankly, makes them look greedy, and it's a sad road for a once great company to go down. Finally, one more thing to go over before we go. I really hate how all these websites and stores selling iPhones try and hide the actual price of it, and they do so by just promoting the monthly plan price. This happens online and in stores too, and it's so blatantly deceptive and misleading, I think it quite possibly should be illegal. Sometimes I even struggle to actually find out what the full price of these phones are, because when you look them up and see things at first glance, all they show you is this $25 a month plan. And sure, that does make it sound less expensive. 20 or 30 a month isn't much to people who have a job, but keep in mind, you're just delaying the inevitable full price here. That phone is still going to cost you $1,000 or $1,500, even if you do get to pay and dole out your money in smaller monthly payments. And also, if they charge you interest on that plan, or if you miss a payment and get a penalty fee, then that iPhone is going to end up costing you even more. Pretty shitty for a device that's already overpriced as hell, and by the time you pay it off, you're going to need another upgrade. And I think over-advertising these monthly prices is a way for Apple and its sellers to convince poorer, less intelligent people into buying overpriced phones that they can't afford and that they don't need. What do you guys think? Is Apple's new iPhone 11 a ripoff? Has the company fallen far from its former glory days? And do you think you'll be using any Apple products in the future? Also, does that whole monthly pricing thing confuse you all too? And do you think it's being done to mislead people? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.